Hello, everyone. This is Frank DiMora with the End Times Research Ministry, and I have my assistant, Amy Carlson Naomi, on the line with me, and we're discussing some of the news of today that is leading to some breaking news about what's going to happen to the economy, not just the world economy, but this is breaking news to show us what's going to happen worldwide, not just the United States. Now, we know that the United States, the petrodollar, is going to disappear. There's no question about that. And when that does, it's going to affect the entire world. It's going to have a domino effect. Right now, a large part of what's taking place, if you haven't been watching the news, you should be watching it, because the oil prices, if you noticed, have been dropping dramatically. Now, a lot of people in the United States think that this is a good thing, and in most cases, it is a good thing because you can buy a little bit more because you're not spending that much more on gas. But in the long run, it's not going to be good because, as I said, the petrodollar, when that disappears, it's going to be a crash. A lot of people have been writing about it, and we're getting that much closer to it. So, as I said, I have Amy on the line. Hi, Amy.
Hi, Frank. How are you?
Good, thank you. And what we're discussing is some of the article, the titles, and this is screen sharing with Amy, and she has some of the articles that we have on the site today. And this first one, Russia just pulled itself out of the petrodollar, and this isn't the only nation that has been talking about removing itself out of the petrodollar. And the more nations who do this, this is very, very ominous because it's going to drive the dollar down. Amy, now I know
Yes.
that you just read this article. Do you have any input for this?
On the petrodollar, I was looking at a joining article that I also saw today. In addition to Russia pulling itself out of the petrodollar, it has also shifted all of its natural gas flow to Europe from the Ukraine to Turkey. We were talking earlier about some of the possible implications of that. You'd have to start back when the oil prices started dropping, and to give you a little bit of background why that happened, when we saw that coming, OPEC had a meeting, and Saudi Arabia decided that they were not going to stop their production. They were going to continue putting as much oil into the market as they had. When there's a massive amount of supply and demand, the prices drop. You know, you have a lot of product, there's not a lot of demand for it, so competitors continue to drop their prices, so we'll want to buy from them because it's cheaper.
Right.
Makes sense. There's a couple of reasons that Saudi Arabia is doing this, and I'll just say it in a nutshell. Number one, it has to do with the American shale industry. From what I understand, we have 42% of our economy invested in shale production.
Right.
These are the words that you hear on the news and people talking about fracking all over.
Right.
And what this is doing is making it impossible for us to produce cheaper oil. Okay? Whereas before, it was $103 a barrel. We'd come in with our shale production, could be a little bit cheaper. Now that oil from Saudi Arabia and all these other countries have fallen, there's really no need to produce shale. So it is affecting our American shale economy. It's closing down shale production. And if you can see here on the screen...
Well, not only that, but a lot of people will be losing jobs because why would they want to pursue taking, the shale oil if
Right.
they have it plenty?
Right, which also affects the electronics industry. And if you look at Bloomberg at all today, you'll see that Best Buy is falling their stocks of electronic products.
Right. Now, let me just stop 1 second, just in case the people don't know. The electronics industry, large part of it, they need oil to make their products. Just about everything you'll find that oil. So if they don't have it, and there's a backlash to it. So this is what's happening to Best Buy.
Exactly. And also, another headline here, Shell Oil Company just scrapped a almost $5 billion project in Qatar. There was no reason anymore. All of the jobs that this new oil production was going to create in Qatar. I mean, it's just a complete ripple effect. Because the price of oil is so low, they're like, well, there's no reason for us to do this. It's flooding the market. We do not need more oil production. We're not going to make anything from it. Now, all those people that were going to work on this project are out of a job.
Right.
So,
well, it won't be just when you're talking about oil production being tossed out. It won't be just, when we're dealing with Qatar. We're dealing with the United States, and
yes,
you have a backlash of all these other companies that depend on this, and all you're going to do is find that people are going to be moved into unemployment lines.
Right.
As a matter of fact, we have one of the reports deals with the unemployment today. So can we scroll to that for a second?
Yeah.
And then we'll get back. I don't want to get off track. We'll get back to this Turkey deal.
Okay. U.S. jobless claims rose to a 4-month high today, even though, now don't forget this is from Reuters, so this is one of the mainstream media. They're still saying that it continues to point to a strengthening labor market, which I don't see how they can possibly say that when the jobless claims have risen.
Right. Now, according to this, I'm going to read this real quick. It says the number of Americans filing new claims for unemployment benefits last week increased to the highest level since early September, but the underlying trend continued to point to the strengthening labor market. Additional claims for state unemployment benefits rose by 19,000 to a seasonal adjusted 316,000 for the week ending in January 10, the Labor Department said on Thursday. So now what I've been warning over the years is to keep your eyes on the market, because not only are we going to start seeing more jobs lose, but they're talking constantly about how Obama's creating jobs, but most of them that are being created now are the 30-hour week because of the Obamacare, and it doesn't come with benefits, and so you have people that are getting into the market, but the income is lower. And not only are the hours lower, but people aren't getting pay raises. So they don't really say too much about this when they give these statistics.
No, and they're always adjusted.
Yeah, and absolutely, they're always adjusting. Now, we know that there's a shift in unemployment. There's going to be a shift in unemployment. And I think that you're going to see more of this in 2011. But I want to go back to Turkey, because what Turkey is doing, let's go back to that article, because Turkey, it says...
where Russia is moving to Turkey?
Right. Russia just made a bold move to keep its gas leverage on Europe. And what this article talks about is they're moving the gas line to Turkey. At least that's what they want to do. Now, what's really interesting, I'm going to pull up something for us. Here is an article that came out on August the 29th of 2012. Now, it's a couple years old, but in hindsight, it could be it's really current compared to what's going on right now. And this article says, can TANPA pipeline unlock EU membership for Turkey? Now, the reason why I'm bringing this up is because in Daniel, we see that there's going to be a revived Roman Empire in the last days. Jesus Christ talks about this in the book of Revelation. And it's the revived Roman Empire. Now, Turkey, with the Ottoman Empire, was in the eastern leg of the old Roman Empire. So Turkey, as being a member who's been trying, now they've been officially what they call them is the candidate country. So Turkey, and when you read my post, you can do a Google search about Turkey joining the EU. Just put Frank DiMora, Google search Turkey joining the EU, and you'll get this information. So now there's been a push in the latter part of 2014 to push Turkey into the European Union. Now, if Turkey has this oil pipeline going through their nation, and the EU needs that oil, you could see where it's going to go. It's going to be more advantageous for the European Union to draw in Turkey. Now, this article says the energy-rich Azerbaijani is dangling a massive political carrot in front of its western neighbor Turkey as a new report asserts the building of the Trans-Anatolian pipeline could boost Turkey's chances of joining the European Union. It is an enticing prospect for Ankara, to say the least. Now, just think about this for a second. I'm not saying that this is going to happen, but it is a possibility. If we have the European Union, which is the western side of the old Roman Empire, that's already standing, and you have Turkey, which was in the old Roman Empire, the eastern leg of the old Roman Empire, and Turkey joins the EU, then what you have is you have both the western side and the eastern side, or those legs that we see in the book of Daniel, joining together as the revived European Union. And that is a real possibility concerning what's going on with the oil industry and their aims of flowing that oil and what countries they want it to flow in. So there's a lot to consider when you read the news, and you know Bible prophecy, it could be, it's a maze that leads to fulfillment of prophecy.
Exactly. And with Russia moving this pipeline into Turkey, that's just more of an incentive for them to bring them in. You know, they're not going to have it in Ukraine anymore, so why wouldn't the European Union want to have Turkey join?
No, absolutely. That's absolutely. And Turkey is not only that, but Turkey is not too friendly with Israel.
Not at all. And if you've been reading the headlines lately, even today, about when Netanyahu went to the Paris rally, Turkey and him have been trading words for the last few days. Well, here's another thing that I wanted to point out.
Okay.
It says here that not just for the American shale industry, but part of the reason that Saudi Arabia has decided not to drop their oil output is to hurt the economies of Russia, which obviously we can see that it is, because the ruble has fallen. If you've been watching the news, Russia's making massive attempts today to save themselves by pulling out of the petrodollar, creating a new credit rating agency with China, which is going to affect everything worldwide, and then moving this pipeline. So they're really struggling to make moves that are going to protect them. Okay? When Saudi Arabia did this, the reason that they're doing this is because every country has to make a certain amount of money on their oil to break even. And if you look back on, let's see, what day was this? If you look back to January 5th, we put up a chart on your site that shows how much each of these countries need to make per barrel of oil to break even in their economy. And they're not making it anymore, as you can see here. See this? Can you see this chart okay?
Yep, no problem.
Okay. Iran has to make over $120 a barrel of oil for them not to go into debt or default on their national debt or have deflation to wreck their economy. Well, right now, oil is sitting below $60 a barrel. So what do you think is going to happen to their economy?
Well, obviously, for the past 5 years, because of some of the sanctions the United States has placed on Iran, it's definitely hurt the economy. But now it's even worse, because if they do have that less production there,
Right.
or getting the less money for that oil, it's just going to play havoc. And not just with Iran, but every one of those oil countries.
Another one from the news the other day, they were talking about Venezuela. I mean, people are standing in line to buy food there already, and you can see that they're one of the countries that's listed here. They have to make over $100 a barrel.
Right. Now,
Yeah.
that brings me to another point, Revelation 6:6, where the Lord talks about the working all day long for a quart of wheat, and he also gives mention to barley. So it just shows that during the last days, the people are going to have to work all day long for one small meal. Now, if you have a crisis, an economic crisis, and it could happen because of the crisis of the oil productions and the crisis of the plunging oil, then you'll see how it can affect the economy and people, the cost of living going through the roof, so that people would have to work all day to get a meal.
Well, here's a good example from today's news. Puerto Rico approved a 68% oil tax increase. So how do you think the people in Puerto Rico are going to fare with this new oil tax increase?
Yeah.
Because they're having to do that just to break even on their economy, which means you're working all day, you get your paycheck, now you have to spend even more for gas and oil products. You'll have less for food. I don't know how, I mean, I'm surprised that there's not going to be rioting in Puerto Rico here. Because that's quite a bit. It's from $9.25 to $15.50.
Right, right,
That's a giant increase in what they're going to have to be paying.
right. Now, just let me say this for anybody that just found my YouTube channel. You can see all of these links by going over to my website and click the link, and you could read the entire article. But all of this information is just leading to a crisis, not, like I said, not just the United States, but a global crisis. And one of the reasons, the main reasons why you're going to see something like this take place is because the Antichrist has to have a venue to come out. And what better venue to see the global markets fall apart and chaos ensue throughout the countries. And they're going to be demanding at that point for somebody to step in and take control. And obviously you'll have the Superman coming, who would be the Antichrist, who will seem like he has the answers, but at the end run, people are going to find out that that's not the case.
Exactly. And we can see from just what happened just today in the news, where the Lord talks about, gold and silver in James and in Revelation, that gold and silver would go up. I mean, he knew this thousands of years ago. You can see from this headline today, because Switzerland took the cap off of their franc, the global markets went crazy.
Right. Chapter.
And Switzerland has always been considered a safe haven.
Now, I do have in my book, there's a chapter about gold and the silver and what's going on. So obviously I'm going to be adding this to that chapter, because when the gold prices are going to shoot up, it's not if they're going to shoot up, it's when it's going to shoot up. Now, people are going to rush out and think, well, I'm going to go out and buy the gold and the silver and I'm going to be okay for bad economies. But what's going to happen is, when the church is taken out of the way, I don't care if you have all the gold in the world, it's not going to do you any good, because the Antichrist is going to force everybody to bow down to him. And nobody, according to Revelation chapter 13, nobody's going to be able to buy or sell unless they have the mark of the beast. So if you have the gold and you carry all that gold to get a pound of rice or a loaf of bread, it won't do you any good unless you have the mark of the beast. And of course, if you take it, you know what happens. You end up in the eternal flame, and that's not where you want to be.
Right, and gold, as I was saying, gold shot up to a 4-month high today, just based on what Switzerland did, which is kind of unprecedented for them. But from what I've read, they're doing it in response to the potential printing of money by the European Central Bank.
Yeah.
And we know that the euro has been having trouble for quite a few years now, and it's not getting any better. Greece is probably going to go into a second default, and there's talks of them leaving the European Union.
Right. Well, let me stop you there for a second, because now you're going in the book of Daniel, because Daniel in chapter 2 warns that this entity of the last days, the 10 toes, or this revived Roman Empire, is not going to adhere together. They're going to break up. So one of the things we already saw was the development of the European Union, or the revived Roman Empire, and now we're starting to see what's going to break it down or fulfill that prophecy, saying that it's not going to adhere together. And eventually there'll be 10 of nations will stick together, and that's where the Antichrist will come out. He'll be the little horn that shoots up out of the 10.
Exactly. So you can see that all the news from today, I mean, it's a daily walk leading you to the fulfillment of prophecy.
There's no question about it. No question about it. Now, concerning the petrol oil, the decline of the prices, and the gold, I wanted to take a look at what the watchdog here, the USA watchdog, has to say. They have an interview. I'm going to play a little bit of it, and I'm hoping that you'll go over to YouTube to the entire video. It's called Jim Sinclair, Russia Can Collapse U.S. Economy, Gold Update, Silver is Gold on Steroids, and more.
Hello, I'm Greg Hunter. Thank you for joining us today on USAWatchdog.com. One of the things in the news is the rising price of gold. And we have today, once again, Jim Sinclair of JSMindset.com. Jim Sinclair, thank you for joining us today on USA Watchdog.
It's a pleasure to be here, Greg.
And I'm just going to skim over your resume. You have a deep resume. You've been a brokerage holder. You've worked for Paul Volcker, selling silver. The big build back in the '80s. You're a CEO of a company, Tanzanian royalty. You are a big-time investor. You're one of the great minds, one of the top gold people in the world. So let's start with gold. Had a nice run since the beginning of the year, 15%. And it's in the possibility, you said, that it could hit $50,000 an ounce. Are you still sticking by that?
Oh, I am sticking by that, and the $50,000 an ounce is predicated on a shift in the mechanism for determining gold's value from the paper markets to the physical markets. Should that emancipation of gold take place, then $50,000 is a possibility and could become a reality.
Well, I wanted to talk about, you've been saying for a long time that the markets have been manipulated, and you're a guy who used to trade in the gold market and did it quite successfully. And you've been saying for a long time it's been manipulated. Well, now we've had, several revelations. You've had the German regulators say it could be worse than LIBOR. We've had reports and studies out from the foreign press, even published on Bloomberg, saying, yep, the gold market's manipulated. Has been manipulated for 10 years, one report says. Are you surprised by that?
Not at all. I mean, I come out of the 60s. I've been 54 years in this business, most of the time spent in the gold market. And the fix has always been fixed for the positions of those who are doing the fixing. This is nothing new. We knew this back before gold was legalized. And nothing has changed. It's only become more prevalent, more well organized and automated.
Do you think they're going to lose control of the price fixing mechanism? Do you think they're just going to run out of gold and all of a sudden you'll get what you say, emancipation?
Something has to happen. The emancipation of gold from the paper market is a product of the drawdown on the inventories of the warehouses. I don't believe for a moment that COMEX is going to default, but I believe quite certainly that the COMEX will shift from settling in gold to settling in cash. Now, when it settles in cash, it's just like an option market. The significant volume that you're able to get into the paper market comes from a large degree from hedging, from the producers as well as from the consumers of gold. And the reason why they can hedge is because it's actually settled in gold, meaning the banks can lend against the hedged positions. The banks can't lend against a hedged position which doesn't settle in gold, only settles in price, for the same reason that no bank lends against an option.
So they have to have the gold to control the price, in short.
To have the volume. In other words, to have that volume of trading, they have to have the gold. And they have to have the paper facility in order to control the price of gold. I mean, confessions of a manipulator. I put gold through 400 on the upside twice. The last time it went straight to 887.50. Now, I'm not saying that that's virtue by any matter of means just because it happened to be long, but I can tell you exactly how it's done. You just offer or demand supply in a period of illiquidity that's beyond any capacity to be met. We've already had one day where 2.5 years of production was offered for sale. It couldn't be in a physical market that has to deliver within 3 days. It can only be in a paper market that doesn't have to deliver. That all you have to do is put up cash, and if you declare yourself an arbitrageur, if you declare yourself a hedger, if you are a metals dealer, the amount of cash you have to put up is minimal.
You are going to be the chairman of a new gold exchange in Asia. How's that going?
It's coming along. It's not an easy thing to do. It has to have its platform. We have to have the supply and demand. We have to be able to do the volume, but it is in the works and is coming along. There are approximately 9 other entities in Moscow and Hong Kong that are going for cash exchanges. So we're number 9 of a group of people, of entrepreneurs, who see this shift from paper to physical.
And then when you have this physical market, and one of 9 in the world, it'll be, if you want to sell your gold, no futures, you bring it out here and we'll sell it for you.
Think of it as a spot contract with gold in a warehouse. spot contract with gold in a warehouse.
If you don't have the gold, you can't sell it.
You can't sell it if you don't have the gold, and you can't buy it unless you can produce the money.
All right, and let's talk about the Ukraine situation. I mean, this is last time we talked, this wasn't even a blip on the radar, and now it's become a huge deal.
Well, welcome back to the Cold War that could get hot overnight.
Well, Paul Craig Roberts said, Reagan stopped the Cold War, and Obama has brought it back.
He's brought it back by changing the let's say, new normal diplomacy, making outrageous threats on a continuing basis rather than seeking a solution.
Well, the people in Crimea are overwhelmingly Russia. The parliament has already voted yes to joining or affiliating with the Russian Federation. The people are voting overwhelmingly to vote for joining the Russian Federation. Basically, how can we sit there and say people should have the right of self-determination, and then
preventing bank wires? That would be one of the
move may be to we want payment in gold and silver for our oil and natural.
Having aggressive machinery and aggressive people looking right at each other.
Well, this mistake is probably going to be preceded with some sort of economic sanctions, economic warfare, which is already going on. And one of the things they're talking about is to, ultimately remove Russia from the SWIFT system. In other words, don't let them use the international payment system. And Russia's counter move may be to we want payment in gold and silver for our oil and natural gas, and they'll do that selectively. For Europe and any Western allies, gold. For China, yuan's good. So what do you think about that?
You make a few points there. One is the use of the SWIFT system to prevent or to create a difficulty, almost a prohibitive difficulty, in doing business by preventing bank wires. That would be one of the possibilities. But already the BRIC nations are developing their own SWIFT system. So the mistake in using the SWIFT system, short of absolute war, is that it has created a competitor that all the BRICS will be using. So the use of the SWIFT system in the Iranian situation, even though used selectively, was, in my opinion, a mistake of using a very powerful tool prematurely. That's something that when you have a hot war going on, you try and stop the economic functioning of your opponent. By using it in a cold war that could turn hot in a warrant of draconian actions against, we hear lies, we hear untruths. Agreement by treaty when they gave the Crimea to the Ukraine.
Barrel of a gun. I don't think so. I think these people speak Russian. I mean, couldn't it be the beginning of the end?
On the USDX, it almost seems as if the dollar lost its mojo. And the petrodollar is the area of demand. In settlement for contract, you've got to go buy dollars to settle the contract. Present government of the Ukraine legal, which came out of street riots.
Well, let's get back to the financial system. Could these sanctions? I mean, if let's say it doesn't turn into all-out war, couldn't these sanctions implode the global economy? Couldn't it be the beginning of the end?
What it could implode is your point number 2 that you just made. When the U.S. dollar came off the gold standard, Nixon put the U.S. on an oil standard. And through negotiations with Saudi Arabia, then the major source of energy, created an agreement that all energy contracts would be settled in dollars. And the petrodollar is the area of demand. In settlement for contract, you've got to go buy dollars to settle the contract. So the petrodollar is the standard on which the U.S. dollar maintains its strength. Now, recently, on the move below 0.80 on the USDX, it almost seems as if the dollar lost its mojo. It has not been under 80 for any significant length of time. The Exchange Stabilization Fund has been in there on a continuing basis to bring the dollar every time it comes down into the 80 area to 80.50 or maybe 81.20, but to give it some sign of strength. Now, it's struggling under 80. I think it's struggling under 80 because it smells the real teeth of a retaliation for sanctions being in the simple acceptance of any currency whatsoever for the payment for gas to Europe. And believe me, they'll settle in other currencies. To settle in the euro is much easier for the energy dealers. But the strength the dollar has is that you must go into the dollar market, purchase dollars in order to settle the energy contracts. We have gone to war, Greg, over the petrodollar. If the petrodollar is to be weakened to any degree whatsoever, it shifts the entire strength. It's like a shift in momentum. So the petrodollar is the momentum of the U.S. dollar. And should the petrodollar be challenged by the acceptance in any currency for energy by Russia, then you've had a change in the momentum, and you could have a 7,600 very easily on the USDX for the U.S. dollar.
So Russia could not only say, hey, we want gold for our payment, but they could say, hey, you know what, we want you to pay us in rubles.
Well, pay us in anything.
Or pay us in yuan, or pay us in euro, or pay us in real, or pay us in rupee. You can pay us in anything. No longer are we taking just dollars.
Doesn't have to be rubles. It means foreign exchange transaction doesn't have to be done by the major energy consumer. Makes things very simple. Makes energy cheaper by the foreign exchange relationship. So why in the world would anybody want to pay in dollars if they can pay in their own currency? And you would have the dollar under pressure that it hasn't been under before. And that's what the dollar is showing you by not being able to rally back over 80 when the stock market is under such significant pressure. That's euros selling U.S. stocks should convert. You should go into safe havens. You should be buying the treasuries and buying the U.S. dollar. So why is it under 80? It's under 80 because the dollar looks out beyond where it is right now and says, no, Russia could retaliate in a manner that would have a phenomenal impact on the U.S. and on the U.S. dollar, not by selling treasuries, not by anything else except saying, well, I'm not in the SWIFT system, so, hey, pay me in dollars. Pay me in any currency you want other than dollars.
Ooh, what would that do to the price of gold?
I would say gold would be between 15.50 immediately. And I'd say that the U.S. dollar would be 76 on its way to 72 on the USDX.
Would there be any coming back from that? Once Russia started doing that, would there be any coming back from that? Wouldn't that be the beginning of the end of the petrodollar? Wouldn't Saudi Arabia, who's not really happy with us, say, yeah, we're going to do what Russia's doing. We're going to take payment in yuan, rupee, euro. We're going to take payment in all kinds of currencies.
Anything. So if we can equate that to something, the dollar is the common stock of the United States. It loses a significant amount of demand, which does what? Breaks the momentum of its trend. You break the momentum of the trend when a bull market ends, a bear market starts. When a bear market ends, such as in gold, a bull market starts. When the bull market in the dollar ends, a bear market starts. And Russia has the capacity, the ability, the inclination, of course, to just do one single thing: accept payment for energy in any currency you wish to give us. You've got the euro at $1.45 to $1.50, and you've got the dollar at 72 to 76 on the USDX.
Energy in Europe, they get a bonus, they get a bump. Their currency would go up, energy prices would go down. They'd be saying, "Hey, we like this deal with Russia. We like paying for our natural gas and oil in euro."
Merkel would shut up and smile.
So let me stop it there and just say, look, if that would be the case and the euro went up significantly, and they are the revived Roman Empire, it would just show you that the strength of this revived Roman Empire is seen before us to fulfill prophecy. So, as I said, there's more to this interview, and I did splice a little bit of it, and I think that it would be a good idea to listen to the whole thing because it's showing us the direction of the near future, the demise of the petrodollar, the rise of gold. And again, Jesus gave us insights on these things in prophecy. Let's go back to finish the conversation I had with Amy.
If oil prices keep falling, it's not going to be very pretty here much longer in the United States. So,
well, for the time being, I suggest that if people have a little extra money that they may want to buy some food that they normally eat, why the prices are still at these prices, because they are going to shoot through the roof. Now, for those that want to understand what's going on, just do again, you could do a Google search on Frank DiMora, Revelation 6:6. People standing in line all day long. All right, just put that in there and you're going to see all of my warnings. Now, since 2007, I believe it was 2007 when I opened up the prophecy site, I've been warning the people every single year that you will see the price of food go through the roof. And every single year, that's exactly what's taking place. And now we're starting to see through these other nations, as the report you read today, that people are going to be standing in line. Remember, Russia was about 15 years ago with Russia. People were standing in line for 12, 13 hours for 12 eggs. And now that the ruble's falling, I believe that these people are pretty worried about going back into that kind of situation. So we're looking at some volatile times coming up. And Jesus did tell us that there was going to be war, but don't worry, because the end is not yet. So we know that the war is coming. But there will be a time that the world will have to go through before Jesus Christ comes back. So all these things are tied in, especially oil in the Middle East. It's going to be very, very significant. That alone could start the next war.
Amen to that.
Anything else you want to add before we close?
No, that's about all. I just, we're keeping on the watch here, and we're watching the economy and seeing what the world is doing and how they're responding. And, if you're study prophecy at all and you're in your word every day, and especially if you visit Frank's website, you'll start seeing the pieces of this puzzle fall into place on an almost daily basis. It may take a few months for us to see the absolute end result, but you can see it coming. As the world is pulling away from this, what's going to happen to just our country of the United States.
Well, and this is only one part that we're discussing, one part of the prophecies concerning, economics, because economics is going to filter into a lot of different things. And as you saw today, people eating, jobs,
Yes.
chaos, wars, it's all tied together. So, Amy, thanks a lot for spending the time with me today with this. And again, go over to my website as you see right there. And if you have any questions, you can email me or write to my P.O. box. And we thank you for allowing us to come into your home this way. Take advantage of my book. It's free today. God bless.